Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's your boy Kris Avalon here, coming at you with a brand new recap episode of Pose. We took a little week off. Well, FX took a week off because of July 4th, Independence Day, all that other stuff. Some people I know, they were like, why ain't they taking off? Because people aren't going to be home to watch TV when the show comes on. But when it returned this week, we were in for the gag of all gags, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But first, we're going to get into all the good stuff before we get to the shocking situation that happened in the episode. So if you have not seen this episode, I would advise not to watch it until you've seen it, because it contains a huge spoiler pertaining a cast regular on the show. So when the episode opens, which is called Never Knew Love Like This, and what I never realized until I saw it in an interview, that each episode, they're pulling a Degrassi. Because remember, Degrassi back in the day used to do this show on their show. They used to do the same thing, which was they'd name every episode after a song. So Pose is doing this too. So the episode is called Never Knew Love Like This, and you'll find out why it was named that as I talk about it further in the episode. It's the Stephanie Mills classic, by the way. So when we open, we get to see a bunch of Banji boys giving a little taste of Vogue, but they're also adding like, oh my god, they're adding a lot of that the New York dance style, break dancing. Oh, how the fuck I forget breaking? Anyway, they incorporate like a breaking style into voguing, which I actually like. And funny thing, I've never seen that before, because it's like with Paris is Burning, all that stuff. I did kind of like that they added that in there. So it was called lofting. So I was living for the lofting. But what I didn't understand, why the hell was Lamar up in there? Because bitch, you are not a butch queen. You are just a straight up queen. So when you up in there giving Banji Boy and Butch, and well, not Butch Queen, but when you're giving full on banjo, well, to me, I always look at Butch Queen as someone who is in the center that can give a little both. You give Butch on one side, you give Queen on the other, and you kind of merge it, and it's just you, and you don't give a fuck. Like, you just living your best life. That you could be, I can give you full on Banji when I need to, and I can give you full on bitch. I will cut your ass with a blade and pop my fan and fan the sweat off my brow when I need to. That's kind of what I was getting when I say Butch Queen. As Miss Paris Dupree. Butch Queen! Butch Queen! Butch! Remember that part from Paris is Burning? But anyway, so seeing Lamar Wintour up there was like the key of it all, but then that wasn't the funny part. The funny part was when Miss Candy, I live for saying Miss Candy. When Miss Candy came out with the Madonna Vogue out with the comb bra and out, she looked fierce, by the way, but she came out with the full-on Madonna Vogue regalia. Well, it wasn't even Vogue. It was when she wore that outfit. What was the video? Express Yourself. That was kind of what that was. When she was on top of the stairs and did that whole performance with the comb bra. That was Express Yourself, by the way. I was like, but I did like it with the ponytail and all this stuff. That was like from the tour, actually, when I think she had that look. But anyway, when she came out walking like an Egyptian instead of voguing and giving us whatever the hell she was, that was hilarious. And I do love that Candy does give us that comedy relief at times, and she just don't care who she offends, that she's unapologetically herself. She is willing to come out and look like Boo Boo the Fool and doesn't care what anyone thinks, and I live for that. However, I also live for Pray Tell's reads, so when he was coming for her, I was like, damn, bitch. I was like, although I found it hilarious, I'm like, well, damn, he was a little harsh there. Like, he was coming for the throat. And Candy was like, bitch, you will remember me. Like, I will go down to be memorable, all this other stuff. And it's funny how when she said those when she said those words, not jump ahead of the gun. When she said those words, it kind of preluded to the events that eventually comes down the pike. So the next part that I want to talk about is Nurse Judy and Blanca having sort of an intervention, excuse me, with Pray Tell. So immediately he actually thought that they were going to put together like the AIDS cabaret, because remember last season when he was, when his boyfriend Costas was dying, he and Blanca and well, he and Judy actually decided to put something together to like sing to the patients who were in the ward, in the AIDS ward, and then Blanca came and they sang home, and it was beautiful and all that other stuff. So they were thinking that they thought they were meeting up to do some type of AIDS cabaret meeting, but it was actually an intervention to get him to start taking those AZTs so that way he can get his viral loads up and he won't end up in those coffins that we've seen so many people throughout the past 3 episodes of the show, where we've been going to a lot of funerals of people who've been dying of AIDS. So of course he didn't take the news well, and he had a moment. You know, Prey has been delivering so many. Shout out to Billy Porter. Billy Porter's been eating. He chews the scenery every time he comes in. So I feel like this role was definitely tailor made for him because he just be giving me my life with those lines. Like I just cannot stop laughing. He's just so funny. But anyway, so he left, and I had never heard. It's like funny, like so many different remedies that people were taking, and I'm like, I had never heard of what is it, a pound of butter with mineral oil. So back in those days, and I didn't know this, that people were taking a pound of butter with mineral oil. They would basically take the pound of butter, put it in a frying pan, and get some mineral oil, and they would drink it, and they think that that would flush out the virus. And I'm like, girl, you ain't getting nothing but cholesterol. Like, you only gonna increase your cholesterol intake. Like, how do you think drinking butter is gonna flush out this virus? Like, it sounds ridiculous. But when you're afraid to start taking these because you don't know what the side effects and all the other stuff is, you're willing to do whatever you can to basically I guess take the easy way out. And a lot of people do crazy home remedies to try to heal themselves instead of going to the doctor and dealing and taking all these medications, because you never know. Like, a lot of people take medications and it makes them feel worse, so they have to figure out a sort like what works for you, what kind of cocktail you can take. So it's a lot that goes into and me learning this from working in at a nonprofit organization that treats infected and people who are affected by HIV and AIDS. It's like you learn all these things. You learn about the different medications, viral loads, and HIV tests, and all these different things, and discretion, not spilling nobody's tea. So if you work in the reception area, which is what I did, and you see some people that you know walking up in there, it's like, bitch, this is my job. I don't tell your business. It's not my place to be go, ooh, girl, guess who was up in here? And she got the high five. HIV, for those of you who can get the reference. So it's like, oh, she got the virus, and she got AIDS, she got the boo-boo kitty. Like, there's so many different phrases that, we call over the years. But to me, I just feel like this is not my place to be telling nobody's business. So I keep that shit to myself, because it's not anybody's place to be spilling nobody's tea. And I've known people, based off stories that they've told me, the person who had the virus and has the virus and all of this told me that certain people that I know that was friends was go out and they would see them in certain places and tell you business. And to me, that is not cool at all. Regardless of whatever the situation is, you should keep a professional courtesy of trying to not tell nobody's business. But not to get off on a tangent, let's bring it back to the episode. The Bi-Monthly Masters of Ceremonies Council. So it was interesting to kind of learn about this, because I've always been curious as to, okay, so how do they, when you're in the ballroom scene, how do you come up with, how do you structure the events? Like, how do you put all this together? How do you get the trophies? How do you bring all these people collectively into, how do you choose your judges? How do you choose the category? Like, how do y'all come up with all of this stuff so that way the children, the legendary children, as they say in Parisburg, children, not children, children. How do you compile all this? How do you make what the ballroom scene is? So seeing that play out, I thought was fairly interesting. And of course, Miss Candy was eavesdropping and wanted to come up with a category herself. She wanted basically create a lip syncing category, which Pray Tell immediately shut down, because he's like, no, we're not doing a lip syncing category. Like, basically, if you want to do that, you can go down to the clubs, you can do all this stuff himself. And shout out for them for bringing up Junior Vasquez, because Junior Vasquez in them days was one of the biggest DJs at the time when he was playing The Tunnel, and he had, damn it, I forgot, what was it? forget the area. It might have been the tunnel actually, because I was too young to be going to them clubs. So I started going to like the Limelight and stuff on the butt end. That's like 99, 2000 when they started closing them shits down and we had that asshole Giuliani as mayor. So I started going to those clubs at the butt end of the spectrum because then I was like old enough to get in a club in like the late 90s, early 2000s. So, he had what was it? And then they tried to do like they had these designers come. I think it was Dolce and Gabbana was coming in, and they were trying to, and then they were trying to hook up his DJ booth, and it was like a landmark. So they started doing construction there, fucked up the landmark. So of course now, once you fuck up a landmark, it can be sold. I did not know any of this other stuff. So when you cannot start doing work on landmark areas, which is why when I used to work at the AMC in Times Square, the doors that they have, those doors are so goddamn old because it's like a landmark theater and all this other stuff. You cannot do no construction on any of that stuff in there because it's considered a landmark. Once you start changing anything up in there, I believe people can come in and the place could be sold. So this is why with the loopholes, you got to watch it when you're trying to do all kinds of whatever. But anyway, Juki Vasquez was a huge DJ back in those days, and he still does stuff every now and again. He was most recently, he just did what was it? He did like a pride party in Queens with Kevin Aviance. So he's still doing stuff. He's still around. He's not as prominent as he once was, but he's still doing things, and he's still out here DJing every now and again. We just don't hear from him like we did back in those days. But anyway, so so basically he shut down her idea. And then Kandi does this crazy ass move. She pulls a goddamn knife on him and is willing to stab him. He's like, "Do it, bitch." Which I was like, ooh, it's a standoff. Kind of like the episode we had previously with Kandi and Elektra when they was about to fight on the dance floor. She was like, Elektra was so damn shady. What was that line that she said? She said something, I'm about to make you the woman that you never was, or some shit like that. And this bitch pulls a damn hammer out of her bag. I was like, y'all are just funny. But, okay. So now to, we had all the funny stuff. Let's get to the serious stuff now. So after that, and she walks out and she disappears and all this stuff, and she's like throwing shit. I don't know what the fuck she threw at Prey. I was like, was that some bread that she was? I couldn't make out what it was. So she starts trying to throw shit at him, and he's dodging them shits like Neo in the Matrix. And then she storms off, and then we go into the next scene where Lulu basically comes to Blanca and Angel in tears, basically saying she hadn't heard from Kandi in 2 days. So they all start forming a search party, going to look for her, and then we come to find out that in lieu of Kandi as a stripper, as we've seen in the beginning of the season, she's been wrapping them those skinny thighs around a pole, that she's also been turning tricks, which is something that a lot of the girls had to do and are still doing because they can't get a legitimate job. They can't get hired in a lot of places because there's still a lot of discrimination against people who are trans. There are people who are trans who can get jobs, but they're getting harassed at work. There's not a lot of places where they can go where they feel safe. So they take on the most dangerous job where it's like your life is in the hands of these people. So you get these people that come along that will have sex with you, and then there's that religious shame and guilt that comes after it. Oh, what does this mean that I'm attracted to this person? So it's like, that hunger is there, that thought is there. I get the best of both worlds. You get the woman with a little something extra between their legs. So it's like they got the breasts and they got the penis, and men like that because it's the extra that you get that best of both worlds situation. And then after you've nutted, then that Christian Catholic guilt or whatever, because I grew up Catholic, we used to call it Catholic guilt. It's like you masturbate and then after you've come, then you feel guilty about it. Or you have sex before marriage and you feel bad about it. Or you have sex with someone of the same gender, then you feel guilty or bad about it. And it's like this overall situation that we've created or they've created, and we've put that in our brains. And now it's like these people are just out here trying to live their life to the best of their ability and do and was do what they want and feel how they feel and all this other stuff. They're just trying to live. And then people come on and you come across and you take their life and all this other stuff. So it just bothers me that people who cannot that you are attracted to people who are trans and then you go and you take their life or you kill them or something. I know I'm like jumping the gun because I didn't even get to the part of what happened. So um so basically, Lulu and Blanca headed to the hotel. They spoke to the hotel manager. The hotel manager was kind of like, oh, you can't go up in the room, so on and so forth. Like he was being very vigilant and he was being very dismissive of them. And then Lulu, you was shady for throwing that damn picture, but I get your anger. And um, so they go back. So after they leave the information, Blanca leaves her number with the hotel manager. And then Lulu leaves the photo so that way he'd be aware of what she looked like. So she was in, what was it, room 44, I believe. The key was missing. It hadn't been returned. Another thing is, I guess they don't keep track of who goes in and out of these hotel rooms. I don't know if they had cameras up in there and the cameras was working, but to see who she went up in that room with last, or whatever the situation was. So, Blanca gets a phone call. Poppy answers the phone because he was basically on phone duty. They created flyers. They were going to go out and start searching for Candy and figure out where she was. So Blanca gets a phone call. She's actually waiting for Electra to come over because she calls her, but also called Lulu. So she tells Lulu what happened. Basically, that Candy was murdered. And then we come to find out the tea of how she was murdered. She basically had sex with a guy in the hotel room and was found dead in the closet, which a lot of people aren't familiar. This is a story similar to Venus Extravaganza, who was in Paris is Burning, very petite, beautiful trans woman. The famous line, you want to talk about reading? Let's talk about reading. What's wrong, Pedro? You got some kind of psychological change happening in your life? Remember that line, touch the skin, honey. Touch all of the skin. You can't take it. You're just an overgrown orangutan. Okay, I'm being melodramatic, but you know how the whole line goes. She was famous for that line. And I live for Miss Venus. But yeah, but the only difference was she was found dead underneath the bed in I forget the name of the hotel, but a friend of mine actually told me which hotel it was. It was down in, was it in 23rd and 12th Avenue or something or another? It was a hotel around there somewhere. Excuse me. And I did like the fact that this show is shedding light on trans murders, which is still happening because I report these on my radio show all the time on the Kris Avalon show on alldigitalradio.com every Saturday at 2 to 4 p.m. East Coast, 11 to 1 on the West Coast. So you can listen to it live on every Saturday in case you're listening. Yeah, shameless plug, whatever. But yeah, I say all this to say is like I love the fact that they're shedding a light on the trans murders, and trans murders were huge in those days. So it was at a point where it was hard to ignore. But now it's like it's still happening. Our media isn't reporting it. A lot of the stuff isn't going on. And what irked my nerve was that while this is a topic that we should be looking at, educating ourselves on, and being vigilant to protect our trans brothers and sisters. I mean, we don't hear a lot of stories about trans men being murdered, but we do hear a lot of stories about trans women, particularly trans women of color, who are being killed on a daily basis, or a lot. I see a lot of the gay blogs are reporting it, but a lot of the mainstream news isn't reporting it. And so for Pose to bring this up and to shed a light on this and educate people, because I feel like this is what this show is doing, I applaud it. What I don't applaud is the fact that I'm seeing people on social media who are making this about race. And it's like, well, they killed, like a friend of mine, and they roasted his ass on social media. And I'm not all for the roasting, but people, y'all really need to learn how to pick y'all battles. Everything is not a black and white issue. Everything is not about fucking colorism. And that shit is getting on my nerves because when you start crying wolf at a certain point, it's gonna fall on deaf's ears. We need to focus on the fact that trans women of color are being killed and are largely ignored by our mainstream media. Not the fact that, oh, they killed off a dark-skinned woman on a show. That's like, okay, well, Scream just aired this week, the entire season, 6 episodes. VH1 aired them on 3 consecutive nights. It features an all-black cast. You're gonna start bitching because black people are killed off on that show? The show centers around a group of black friends. So who are being killed. So you're going to bitch about, oh, they killed off all the black people. Because people complain about that. People complain about black people getting killed off in horror movies and shit all the time. You can't make that excuse. Everybody on the show was black, except, I was going to say, except Paris Jackson. And who else is white is on that show? I think, isn't Nick Jonas on there? I haven't seen the new season. I remember there was somebody else that was on there. Oh, no, not Nick Jonas. It was Tyler Posey. I don't know why, but they kind of look similar. That's why I thought it was him. But I said the other name, but yes, Tyler Posey from Teen Wolf, and another show that I've seen him on that was on Stars that Greg Araki did. I forgot the name of it. And, you know, he's more famous for most recently the penis videos that aired, and he was playing with his pre-cum. Okay, let's get back to the show and not talk about the other stuff. But anyway, you know, I always go off on a tangent. Yeah, so let's not make it about colorism and all that other stuff. This is really about race. And yeah, colorism does play a role in it. That colorism does exist. But this is not the time or the place to be talking about that. We need to be talking about the fact that trans women are being murdered and nobody's doing anything about it, or they go kind of like the family don't acknowledge them or whatever the case is. So, yeah, from the maid finding out where the body was, I didn't mention that part, but yeah, the maid found her body in a closet. Nurse Judy goes to this guy that she knows who's gay, to try to get Candy's body back, and she actually does. She's like, look, put it all off on me. I'll take the L, I'll take the fall, whatever the case is, just as long as we can get this girl's body back and give her a proper funeral, which eventually they wound up doing. So I love that. The body was released to the morgue, and they managed to get her. What I found hilarious was that when they all looked at Candy's body in the coffin, and they had her looking like Pennywise the goddamn clown, mixed with Tan Mom. Like, her skin looked crazy. So what I love was that Angel Blanca and Elektra basically gave her a makeover while she was there and made her look the way she needed to look. So I also like the fact that Pray Tell got up there and basically spoke to her. And I'm like, I'm glad he kept it. He was like, this bitch got on my damn black ass nerve. And which was true. And I like the fact that she was like, you know what, I forgive it. So I love that. I love that scene where it's basically Candy was coming into their minds, in their conscience, and making peace with each and every one of the people that were there. Especially, I had no idea that she and Lulu had like such a butting of heads and didn't really particularly like each other, but they tolerated and they support each other because they were sisters. And you know, like when siblings, whether they're your natural siblings or the siblings that you create, because that's what the LGBTQ community had to do when you were homeless and you were kicked out for being LGBT. Well, gay, or I'd say gay, lesbian, or trans, because when you're bisexual, you can kind of fall on that spectrum. And I don't know if people are getting kicked out of the house for liking both men and women. You can keep that other side of yourself suppressed while you go off and date a girl. But for the most part, people who were noticeably lesbians or gay or transgender or changing their genders or whatever the case would be, when you were being kicked out, you created your family. You would go to New York. You would become part of a house and walk a ball and do all those different things. So for them to kind of come together and just learning of that, I'm like, I had no idea that Lulu and her didn't get along. When she started ripping her shit off in the coffin, that shit was funny though. But it was just overall, I was just shocked by it all. So us learning of that. And I love the fact that we learned why Pray Tell was so hard on Candy, because he was like, you show the part that I've been suppressing for so long, that when you walk down the street, you have to wear a mask and you have to not put your true self out there, that you can't be openly flamboyant because someone can run by and call you a faggot or bash you or whatever the case would be, that you can't openly be yourself. This is why I always feel like when we had World Pride and we had all these different prides, it's so important that we have these things, which I don't understand why we need a straight pride. Y'all get to walk down the street holding hands with your significant other and don't have to worry about getting bashed or abused. So if we didn't have to fight for these things, for equality, we wouldn't need these parades. We wouldn't need all these different things that we have. And this is why this is important. So I did love, like I said, I love Pray's eulogy. What gagged me was that, okay, Angel tried to get Candy's parents to show up, and Candy's parents winded up showing up in the end, which I actually loved. I felt like they was tying too much of a cute little bow on this whole send-off of Candy. But it's TV, it is what it is. And coming to find out that her mother was like, oh, well, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to approach the situation. I thought you were gay. I didn't know you wanted to change your gender. I didn't know how to approach the situation. And I think that happens a lot of times, whereas parents don't know how to treat us when we come out, when you want to come out being a part of the rainbow spectrum. Um, the Rainbow Coalition, as Wendy Williams would always call it. um, I don't think people were aware of how do you treat someone who's gay? How do you treat someone who's trans? Because the church teaches this belief. And some people will go more for what the Bible tells them than what their common sense will tell them, which is fucking ridiculous and unfortunate that you will put a damn book of Grimm's fairy tales over your goddamn children. I don't understand that. Um, but meanwhile, I see a half of you bitches out here eating some goddamn shellfish and mixing fabrics, but y'all will overlook that and committing adultery and doing these other things. A lot of y'all do that, but gay is the ultimate sin of all sins. I can't do that. I can't be around two dudes sucking dick. That's the ultimate sin. But okay. So, what else? Oh yeah. So I love the fact that Candy was unapologetically herself. And she is a true testament of like, go out, live your best life, do you, fuck it up, as we all say now. Like, live your best life and do you. Don't worry about what other people think. Because they, at the end of the day, are hating on the fact that they can't do what you do. They can't be their authentic self. So they want to hate on you for being authentic. So yeah, I think it's very important. And this is why I always feel it's important. When I was hearing the story about in Jersey, they're going to be teaching LGBT history. And I got into a huge debate with a friend of mine on social media who was saying, oh no, let kids be kids. They'll try to put it off on them. And I'm like, why are you automatically, because I knew what it automatically he was thinking. Nobody said anything about sex education. Y'all always equate homosexuality with the sex part. They need to learn LGBT history, where they come from, how the Stonewall riot started, who were all these LGBT pioneers. The View did a whole month on giving credence to people in the LGBT community who have historically paved the way for a lot of the rights that we have today. So these kids need to learn this, and I feel like if they learn it, they will learn to be loving and tolerant of other. I hate the word tolerant. To respect others. I hate the word tolerant because it's like, oh, I'm just putting up with you because that's the right thing to do. I don't agree with what you're about and what you say and what you do, but I'm gonna tolerate you for the sake of you're just a person and I don't want to hurt your feelings. So respecting your fellow neighbor who is different than you. I'll say that. So Candy's sweet refrain. And I knew this was going to happen. I was like, after this whole situation was going to happen, that Prey was going to actually bring in that lip syncing category in honor of Candy and call it Candy Sweet Refrain. I did love that. But here's the thing, the ultimate breakdown where I truly lost it. When them pallbearers came in and the doors open and we went from the church, beautiful shot by the way, we went from the funeral home to the ballroom, and she gets out that coffin and starts lip singing to Never Knew Love Like This by Stephanie Mills. Bitch, can I just say, I lost my mind. I was like, this is the only... Give Angelica Ross her goddamn Emmy already. Like, that whole performance, she ate up that scene. Like, this was just like acting 101, amazing. I thought she did a phenomenal job as Miss Candy. I'm gonna miss Miss Candy on the show. But I feel like, you know what, looking at this point, I felt like she gave us all she needed to give in regards of her performance. Like, where else was we going to take this character? And I feel like, writing-wise, it had to happen to someone who was big, a big name on the show, for everyone to kind of like, to push the show, to shift it where we needed to go. So, Angelica Ross did a phenomenal job. I lived for it. The Gathering at Blanca's house, when you had like members of the House of Ferocity, House of Abundance, well no, the House of Abundance doesn't exist anymore, House of Evangelista, and then you had so you had members from all the different houses at the table, gathering, giving a toast to Miss Candy. And then basically, which we all knew it. I knew it because it's kind of like the writing was getting a little predictable. I was like, after this whole situation with Candy and everything that was happening, I just knew at the end that Pray Tell was going to wake up and be like, you know what? I'm going to take these pills. I want to live like I have so much to give in regards of this fight for my life and everyone else's in the future of those who are going to have HIV and AIDS. Like we have to worry about the next generation, and I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to do my part to make sure that we give the next generation the tools and everything that they need, so that way they can go out here and live their best life and live longer. And we see how far we've progressed in regards of the fight in AIDS and how the medications and all that other stuff works. So on that note, thank you all for watching to the very end. I hope you all liked this episode. Let me know what you thought, what your thoughts were on the episode. Type it down at the bottom. Anything I may have missed, anything that you like, what were your favorite parts, what were your, what'd you think of Angelica's performance? Oh, and congratulations to her, because now she's about to be on American Horror Story 1984, which historically makes her the first trans woman to land recurring parts on 2 TV shows. So kudos to her for getting that part. I know a lot of people were mad that she was killed off, but I'm like, look, when one door closes, another one opens. And plus, look, we have Janet Mock, who just got to deal with Netflix. Who says that Angelica won't wind up acting on one of those shows? So, yeah. Thank you all for watching. Click like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of tonight's episode, and spread the word. Love you all for watching. Ciao, darlings.